Hi, it's Katrina. What if I told you that ancient Egypt's secrets go way beyond pyramids and mummies? From mysterious black fossils to what's under the pyramids, these discoveries are stranger than fiction. Join me and let's dive into the wildest and most fascinating stories uncovered from the land of the pharaohs. Ready to explore the unexpected side of Egypt's past? Let's get into it. Ancient hydraulics in Egypt. Think ancient Egyptians only used brute force to build the pyramids? Think again. We all know the pyramids are one of the world's greatest ancient wonders, but how on earth were they built? Turns out the answer might be a whole lot wetter than we thought. A new study suggests that the ancient Egyptians may have used hydraulic mechanics, that is, water-powered engineering, to help construct the step pyramid of Djoser, the oldest pyramid in Egypt. So how did they do it, and what secrets might still be hidden under the sands of Saqqara? Let's dive in. Let's go back about 4,500 years to the reign of Pharaoh Djoser. His pyramid was a massive leap in construction technology. Scientists now think this structure might also have been a giant experiment, one in which water pressure was used to move massive stone blocks. Instead of dragging these stones up long ramps, what if they were lifted from the inside of the pyramid using water power, kind of like how a geyser pushes water upward? It's what experts are calling a volcano-fashion lift. But how would that have worked in the middle of the desert? Good question. The answer may lie in the landscape. Researchers looked at the nearby Giza and Ludir, a mysterious ancient enclosure near the pyramid. At first glance, it just looks like a big wall, but maybe that wasn't the case. Could it actually be an ancient dam? Scientists believe this structure could have helped trap water and sediment, creating a kind of reservoir. They even think a temporary lake might have formed west of the pyramid complex, fed by a branch of the Nile River. This lake is really important because it could have filled a moat-like system around the pyramid, what the researchers call the dry moat, which could then channel clean, sediment-free water right where it was needed. This wasn't just for decoration either. In the southern part of the moat, archaeologists discovered a series of deep trenches that resemble modern-day water treatment facilities, complete with settling basins and purification systems. So not only were they using water, they were cleaning it and directing it with precision. What's even more amazing is that the whole setup from the dam to the moat seems to have worked as one giant hydraulic system. Could this mean the ancient Egyptians had a better understanding of fluid dynamics than we ever imagined? Did they invent practical water engineering thousands of years before the Romans or modern engineers? What do you think? The vast city beneath the Giza pyramids. What if the pyramids in Egypt just mark the top of a vast underground metropolis, one that is tens of thousands of years older than the pyramid themselves? Well, that's exactly what a team of Italian researchers recently claimed, and it's turning heads and raising eyebrows all around the world. So what exactly did they find? According to researchers Corrado Malanga, Filippo Biondi, and Egyptologist Armando May, something astonishing lies beneath the Pyramid of Khafre. They discovered massive wells, chambers, and stone corridors stretching thousands of feet below the desert floor. Using satellite radar pulses and high-tech imaging, they claim to have discovered 8 vertical shafts, each about 33 to 39 feet wide, plunging more than 2,000 feet underground. And at the bottom, enormous rectangular enclosures, complete with staircases spiraling down into darkness. Could this be the lost world of an ancient, advanced civilization? If true, it would flip everything we think we know about history. The Giza pyramids were built around 4,500 years ago, but these underground structures? The team claims they date back nearly 38,000 years. That's before the first cities, before agriculture, even before the wheel. Well, way before the wheel. Back then, humans were supposedly living in caves and hunting woolly mammoths. So how could they have built something so enormous and complex? The researchers point to ancient Egyptian texts for clues. They reference chapter 149 of the Book of the Dead, which speaks of 14 dwellings of the divine. They interpret this as evidence of an older civilization lost to time. They also mention the Turin King list, an ancient document listing gods and demigods who ruled before the pharaohs. But were those really gods or just kings from a forgotten time? Of course, not everyone is buying it. In fact, most mainstream archaeologists are calling BS. Professor Lawrence Conyers, a radar expert from the University of Denver, says the idea is really outlandish. He points out that humans weren't building cities 38,000 years ago, and the kind of radar penetration needed to see 2,000 plus feet underground. According to him, that is just not possible with current tech. Dr. Zahi Hawass, Egypt's former Minister of Antiquities and a familiar face in many pyramid documentaries, didn't hold back either. He called the study completely wrong and said it lacked all scientific credibility. Plus, the research hasn't been published in any peer-reviewed journal, which is kind of a big deal in science. Still, the team stands by their work. They say their radar technology, called Doppler tomography, can create high-resolution images by measuring changes in signal frequencies. According to spokesperson Nicole Chicolo, this method is great for spotting deep shafts and underground anomalies. They even claim to have found signs of a water system running beneath the pyramid, with underground paths that go even deeper. A city with plumbing 38,000 years ago? This raises even more questions. Like, if this city really exists, who built it? What happened to them? And how did knowledge of its existence vanish so completely from the historical record? The researchers have suggested that a global cataclysm, perhaps an asteroid impact, wiped out the civilization, erasing nearly all traces. It's a bold theory, but some ice core and ocean sediment data hint that something big may have happened around that time. Of course, until the claims are verified, we are left with two possibilities. Either this is one of the biggest archaeological breakthroughs in history, or one of the most elaborate misinterpretations ever made. So, after hearing all that, what do you think lies beneath the Pyramid of Khafre? Forgotten metropolis, or just a mirage in the data? And now for a quick break, because it's shoutout time! I want to give a big thank you to Joseph and Jennifer Mack for supporting this channel. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. The OG Oncologists. What if the first cancer surgeons lived thousands of years before scalpels and sterile operating rooms? A shocking discovery in ancient Egypt suggests just that, forcing us to rethink the very origins of modern medicine. Researchers have discovered what may be the earliest known attempt at cancer surgery, and it dates back over 4,000 years. The star of this medical mystery? A skull from ancient Egypt belonging to a man who lived between 2687 and 2345 BC. That's older than the pyramids. Scientists had known for a while that this man suffered from a large brain tumor and over 30 smaller lesions caused by cancer spreading. But here's the crazy part. Under a microscope, researchers found cut marks right around those cancerous spots, and it looks like someone was trying to remove them. Are you impressed? Is your mind blown? But what kind of tools could ancient doctors have used? According to the study, they likely used sharp metal instruments to make the cuts. That means not only were ancient Egyptians aware of cancer, but they were curious enough and brave enough to cut into a human skull to study or maybe even treat it. This might just be where modern medicine began. Now, here's a question that's been keeping researchers up at night. Did the doctors operate while the patient was still alive, or was it an ancient autopsy? Unfortunately, we may never know for sure. But either way, it's a sign that these ancient healers were way ahead of their time. Think about it. While the rest of the world was just figuring out farming and wheel making, these folks were conducting brain surgery. And the surprises don't stop there. The team also examined the skull of an older woman from a later period, around 664 to 343 BC. Her skull showed signs of a serious head injury, possibly from a weapon. But she survived, thanks to what appears to be ancient medical care. She also had a lesion related to cancer, though unlike the man's skull, there were no signs of surgery. So what does this all mean? Were the ancient Egyptians the original oncologists? Were other ancient civilizations also experimenting with early cancer treatments? This discovery has opened the door to a lot of questions. The lead scientist, Edgar Camaros, believes this could just be the beginning. If one society was studying cancer thousands of years ago, who's to say others weren't doing it too? If the ancient Egyptians were afflicted by cancer, how far back does the illness go? Has it always been around? Were cavemen walking around with cancer? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. An electrifying theory. Forget mummies, this Egyptian mystery is electric. Deep under the sands of Egypt, there is a hidden chamber called the Serapeum of Saqqara, a mysterious underground hallway filled with 24 massive granite sarcophagi, each weighing up to 70 tons. For centuries, no one has been able to explain exactly what these mega boxes were used for. Were they just over-the-top bull coffins, as some researchers suggest? Or were they actually ancient power generators? The truth may shock you. Discovered in 1850 by Auguste Mariette, the Serapeum is part of a vast underground network near Saqqara, not far from the famous Step Pyramid. The mainstream theory says it was a burial ground for Apis bulls, sacred animals in ancient Egyptian religion. But here's the first twist. These granite boxes are way too big for bulls. If the Egyptians loved their bulls that much, why didn't they treat their pharaohs to the same roomy luxury? Most kings were buried in tight stone coffins. And there's more weirdness. The boxes were carved out of solid granite, a material so hard that it's difficult to work with even today. Why not just use limestone, which is cheaper and easier to shape? Also, if bulls were buried there, where are all the mummies? Only a few bones were found, not entire preserved animals. So if it wasn't a graveyard for bulls, what was it? Let's rewind 5,000 years. The ancient Egyptians already knew how to ferment things. They brewed beer, baked bread, and probably even experimented with different ingredients. Now imagine someone placing barley, bread, beer, and meat inside one of these granite boxes, sealing it tight with that 30-ton lid. What happens next? Fermentation. As yeast breaks down the starch in the barley, it produces carbon dioxide and alcohol. That gas starts building up inside the box, increasing pressure. Now this is where things get interesting. These granite sarcophagi were made with micron-level precision, so precise that they were basically airtight. The gas had nowhere to go, and pressure started mounting. Why does that matter? Well, here's where science gets fun. Granite is made of quartz crystals, and when you put quartz under mechanical pressure, it generates an electric charge. This is called the piezoelectric effect. So as the carbon dioxide built up inside the box and pressed outward, it stressed the granite walls, and voila! Created electricity. Eventually, the pressure could have become so great that the lid would pop open, releasing the gas. Unless, that is, someone stacked stones on top to keep it sealed even longer, which, according to early sketches of the Serapeum, they did. So could it be that they were trying to increase the pressure just to squeeze out more electricity? And get this. In a 2010 experiment, scientists found that granite under intense pressure doesn't just create electricity, it can actually glow. The electric charge ionizes the surrounding air, which lights up just like a plasma lamp. So maybe, just maybe, the Serapeum wasn't dark at all. Maybe it was glowing from within. What's even more mind-blowing is that similar glowing effects have been recorded during earthquakes around the world, known as earthquake lights. Studies have shown that these happen when stress builds up in the Earth's granite layers, releasing electric charges that light up the sky. Could the same principle have been at work in the Serapeum? This theory suggests that the Serapeum sarcophagi were not tombs, but ancient pressure chambers that created electricity through fermentation and stress. That electric energy might have been used for lighting, rituals, or even to send glowing signals into the skies above Saqqara. But what do you think? Was this a forgotten power plant, a secret experiment, or perhaps a cosmic communication system? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The Pharaoh's Curse. What if the legendary Pharaoh's Curse wasn't just ancient superstition, but science? Radioactive science. A new study has taken one of Egypt's spookiest mysteries and flipped it on its golden head. Could ancient Egyptian tombs have been hiding something far more dangerous than booby traps and vengeful spirits? Try nuclear waste. Researchers recently published a study in the Journal of Archaeological Science that links the mysterious deaths surrounding tomb discoveries to possible exposure to radioactive materials. Wait, radioactive waste in tombs that are over 4,000 years old? How could the Egyptians have known about something we only discovered in the modern era? The study looked closely at ancient Egyptian writings, like the pyramid texts and coffin texts from 2300 to 2100 BC, and they found clues that sound suspiciously like early references to nuclear science. Some texts describe Osiris, the god of the underworld, as being transformed into light, a poetic line that now seems to hint at energy release similar to what happens during nuclear reactions. So, could this be an ancient metaphor or ancient physics? What's even weirder is that the Egyptians described burying something called hated excrements in underground vaults. Normally, you would chalk this up to religious rituals, but what if these excrements were actually dangerous materials they wanted to hide from the living? Think about it. They buried this stuff deep, marked it with scary curses, and surrounded it with symbols of warning of danger. Sound familiar? Some of the stone containers found in tombs even had carvings that resemble radiation warning signs, shapes possibly representing alpha, beta, and gamma rays. One researcher pointed out that these symbols and vault layouts are uncannily similar to how we now store radioactive waste. Could the ancient Egyptians have been protecting people from something they didn't fully understand? Now let's talk about the so-called curse. After the discovery of King Tut's tomb in 1922, people started dying. Lord Carnarvon, who funded the dig, died mysteriously just a few months after entering the tomb. Others involved reported strange illnesses, many linked to cancer. Was it mold, coincidence, or radiation sickness? Howard Carter, the big dog behind the discovery, somehow escaped the curse and lived into his 60s, but many others weren't so lucky. The study suggests that prolonged exposure to low levels of radiation in sealed tombs could explain the pattern of health problems among those who opened them. So was the Pharaoh's curse real? Not in a ghostly sense, maybe, but real enough if it was radiation all along. Were the ancient Egyptians accidentally nuclear pioneers, experimenting with materials they didn't fully understand? Or did they actually know more about atomic energy than we give them credit for? I'd love to hear your thoughts. The first astronomical observatory. Was ancient Egypt secretly watching the stars from a giant cosmic calendar? Turns out, yes, and archaeologists just found proof. Deep in the ruins of the ancient city of Buto, modern-day Tel al-Farain, scientists uncovered what they now believe is the first and largest known astronomical observatory in Egypt. But this isn't just another old building with fancy bricks. It's a discovery that is rewriting what we thought the ancient Egyptians knew about time, the sky, and maybe even the universe. So, what did they find? A massive L-shaped building made of mud bricks covering more than 9,000 square feet. To put that into perspective, that's the size of 2 basketball courts. The building's entrance faced the sunrise, and inside was a special platform where a sky watcher, usually a priest, stood to observe the heavens. This person wasn't just stargazing for fun. He was measuring time, tracking the sun, and planning important events like king coronations and religious festivals. But how? That's where the giant sundial comes in. At first, archaeologists thought it was just an oddly placed stone gate, but it turned out to be a slanted sundial that uses shadows of the sun to tell the time, from sunrise to noon to sunset. Have you ever used a stick in the ground to see what time it is? I mean, I haven't, but some people have. It's the same idea, just fancier. Alongside the sundial, they also discovered a merkhet, a type of ancient Egyptian timekeeping tool that helped track the stars. And together, these tools turned the site into a full-blown ancient space lab. Still not convinced that it's an observatory? Well, check this out. They also found a stone slab carved with views of sunrises and sunsets across 3 seasons, and a diagram showing the sky as a mat above the earth, kind of like a giant cosmic picnic blanket. Ever wonder how the Egyptians predicted the Nile flooding or scheduled harvests? Now we know. They had a literal map of the sky to guide them. Even the building's design was a cosmic clue. Most temples had pillars at the end of a hall, but this one had a triad of pillars at the entrance, possibly symbolizing the division of time into seasons, months, and weeks. Two gateways faced each other at the heart of the structure, framing a circular space aligned with Akhet, the sacred horizon where the sun rises. And facing it was a limestone watchtower that may have once had a twin, perfect for stargazing in style. And let's not forget the statues. They found a falcon-headed figure of Horus, the god tied to the sky and sun, and a bronze statue of Osiris wrapped in a serpent. This is a nod to the protective goddess Wadjet, the guardian of the king and the city of Buto. Even a granite statue of King Psamtik I from the 26th dynasty stood guard inside. So was this place just a big science center, or was it also a spiritual portal connecting earth, sky, gods, humans? Maybe it was both. Either way, this ancient observatory shows that the Egyptians weren't just pyramid builders, they were early astronomers, sky mathematicians, and cosmic thinkers. The stars weren't just pretty lights to them. They were a calendar, a compass, and maybe even a divine message. Gold tongues. What do you get when you open a 2,000-year-old Egyptian tomb? If you guessed mummies with golden tongues, you are absolutely right. And yes, it's as weird and fascinating as it sounds. In a stunning discovery near the modern-day Egyptian city of Al-Banasa, archaeologists unearthed 52 ancient mummies. 13 of them had something very interesting tucked into their mouths. Gold amulets shaped like tongues. But why would anyone give a dead person a gold tongue? Was it ancient Egyptian bling? Not exactly. The ancient Egyptians believed that a golden tongue would allow the dead to speak in the afterlife. According to their religion, being able to talk to the gods, especially Osiris, the ruler of the underworld, was kind of a big deal. No tongue, no chat. No chat, no good afterlife. These mummies came from the Ptolemaic period around 305 to 30 BC. Remember, this was a time when Greek and Egyptian cultures were mixing it up in everything from politics to religion. The tombs were found in Oxyrhynchus, a city famous for ancient texts and now, apparently, golden tongues. Alongside the mummies, archaeologists found all kinds of treasures like golden fingernails, yes, fingernails, scarabs, beetle-shaped charms, ritual texts, and 4 intact limestone sarcophagi. One mummy even had a scarab placed directly over the heart, tucked into its wrappings like a spiritual security system. Some of the mummies were laid out side by side, suggesting a communal burial, like a family tomb or a group of elite individuals. And if you think that's cool, wait until you hear about the tomb's art. The ceilings were decorated with bright, colorful images of gods and stars. One of the standout figures was Nut, the sky goddess, stretching across the heavens as boats carried divine passengers beneath her. These scenes gave researchers a fresh look at ancient Egyptian funerary art and how families hope to be remembered, with beauty, protection, and lots of gold. What do you think? Do you now want to be buried with a golden amulet in place of your tongue? Let me know in the comments and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. Strange energy. The Great Pyramid of Giza might just be a giant energy antenna. That's right. In a wild and unexpected discovery, scientists have found that the Great Pyramid can actually focus electromagnetic energy. Yes, the same invisible force that powers your phone and Wi-Fi. So, what does that mean? And could ancient Egyptians have known something about energy science thousands of years before us? This discovery comes from a team of researchers from Russia and Germany who ran advanced computer simulations to see how electromagnetic waves interact with the shape and structure of the Great Pyramid. When they sent radio waves between 200 to 600 meters in length, basically long-range waves, something amazing happened. The pyramid focused that energy into its internal chambers and even under its base. It was like flipping on a secret energy beam inside an ancient tomb. But how is that even possible? Well, the scientists used something called multipole analysis, a method that helps predict how electromagnetic fields behave around complex objects. Think of it like replacing a confusing lightning storm with a simple map of where the flashes will go. With that, they figured out that the pyramid's design creates a kind of natural energy funnel when the conditions are just right. Now, here's where it gets exciting. If we can recreate this electromagnetic behavior on a tiny scale, researchers believe we can design nanoparticles that work like the Great Pyramid. And what would we do with these? Build super efficient solar panels and ultra-sensitive sensors for starters. Imagine solar panels that soak up way more sunlight just by copying the way the pyramid focuses energy, or sensors that can detect even the tiniest environmental changes with extreme precision. But this discovery also raises big questions. Did the ancient Egyptians know what they were building? Was the pyramid shaped just for show, or did they understand its secret power? While there is no proof that the Egyptians were doing electromagnetic experiments, it definitely makes you wonder if they had a deeper understanding of physics than history gives them credit for. Of course, the Great Pyramid has always been surrounded by mystery, from alien theories to magical energy fields. This new finding doesn't confirm any sci-fi fantasies, but it does give real scientific backing to the idea that this ancient monument is more than just a tomb. It's a marvel of ancient engineering, and maybe even a model for future technology. The Trippy Dwarf God. It started with a weird-looking vase and ended with a shocking discovery. Ancient Egyptians were brewing trippy potions thousands of years ago. This small 2,200-year-old vase is decorated with the grinning, lion-faced figure of the dwarf god Bes. But what was inside? I'll get to that in a moment. The story starts at the Tampa Museum of Art, where the mysterious vessel has been kept since it was donated in 1984. Adorned with the image of Bes, a deity famous for guarding mothers, children, and chasing off evil, was it meant to hold water, sacred oils, or perhaps something far more potent? Well, that mystery was finally cracked by Professor Davide Tanasi from the University of South Florida and his team. Using fancy scientific tools, we're talking metabolomics and infrared spectroscopy, basically chemical supervision, they peeked inside the mug and found real evidence of a psychoactive potion. That's right, this mug once held a magical mix designed to trigger visions and possibly even prophetic dreams. So, what was in it? A whole cabinet's worth of ancient ingredients. Wild rue, a known hallucinogen, Egyptian blue lotus, which can cause euphoria, and some cleome plants, possibly used for mental clarity or visions. To give it some taste and drama, they added honey, sesame seeds, pine nuts, licorice, and grapes, making the drink blood red. But here's the truly wild part. The scientists also found traces of human blood and saliva in the mixture. Yeah, they were really mixing human fluids into this ritual potion. But why? Some think this all ties back to the myth of the solar eye, a story where Bes uses a drugged drink to calm the raging goddess Hathor. The theory is that these rituals may have been reenactments of that myth, designed to bring peace, divine guidance, or even help with childbirth, especially in the sacred Bes chambers near the Great Pyramids. The black bones of Set. What would you do if you uncovered massive black bones buried beneath the desert sands? Bones that didn't look human, or even like any animal you'd ever seen. Well, in ancient Egypt 3,300 years ago, they knew exactly what to do. Instead of tossing them aside, the Egyptians treated these ancient remains with awe, reverence, and possibly fear. In the blazing Egyptian desert, a powerful windstorm may have swept through and stripped away the top layers of sand, revealing something incredible underneath. Shiny, pitch-black bones, some over 2 million years old. They looked like they belonged to enormous, monstrous creatures. But who or what did they believe these belonged to? We'll never know exactly what the ancient Egyptians were thinking because they didn't leave any writing about the discovery. But we do know what they did next. They didn't throw the bones out or hide them in a storage shed. They buried them like royalty. Archaeologists discovered the bones in 1922 in a tomb near the town of Khao el-Kabir, a place already known for housing the remains of powerful Egyptian lords. These weren't random grave goods. The fossils had been carefully wrapped in fine linen, placed alongside ivory tools, and sealed in a rock-cut tomb, just like the mummified remains of humans. This shows that the Egyptians saw the bones as sacred. But why? That's where things get really strange. Khao el-Kabir wasn't just any town. It was a religious center for the worship of Set, the Egyptian god of chaos, darkness, and storms. Set was often depicted as a monstrous, part-time animal creature, sometimes resembling a hippopotamus. And guess what kind of fossil showed up the most among the remains? Giant prehistoric hippos. Coincidence? Probably not. The bones weighed over 3 tons and had clearly been transported from far away. Geologists in the 1920s searched over 500 miles around Khao il-Kebir trying to find the original fossil site, but came up empty. This wasn't a quick excavation. This was a massive operation. A team of people working together to carry these ancient bones across Egypt just to bury them in a sacred tomb. It's no surprise that many researchers believe the Egyptians thought they had found the physical remains of Set himself, or at least a divine creature connected to him. And it wouldn't have been the first time. Ancient Greek and Roman historians recorded that Egyptians once found tiny fossil shells near the pyramids and took them to a temple as proof that Set had once ruled the land. The bones, hardened by time and polished by ancient rivers until black, would have seemed magical, almost godlike. And Egyptian mythology had long taught that the gods had bones made of iron or stone. Could they have believed these indestructible remains belonged to a god? The story only got stranger in modern times. When the archaeologists Guy Brunton and Flinders Petrie uncovered the fossils in the 1920s, they didn't fully understand what they had found. The bones were shipped off to a museum and forgotten, as usual, locked in crates for nearly 80 years. It wasn't until 2007 that researchers finally reopened the bundles using modern scanning technology to peek inside without unwrapping the ancient linen. And what they saw was shocking. Inside were bones from all kinds of extinct animals: boars, crocodiles, wildebeests, buffalo, even humans. But above all, there were hippos, giant ones. Each fossil was a mystery, a puzzle piece from Earth's prehistoric past wrapped like a sacred relic, and every one of them shimmered black, the color of Set, the god of darkness and chaos, remember? So what were the black bones of Set? Were they sacred relics, a warning, or misunderstood monsters of an ancient world? We still don't know for sure. We don't know where the fossils were found, why the Egyptians gave them such a royal burial, or why nothing was ever written down about it. But one thing is clear: they meant something powerful to the people who found them, something worth honoring, something worth carrying across the desert and burying with care. Maybe they thought they were laying a god to rest. Even now, 3,300 years later, the mystery of the black bones continues to haunt us. Magical makeup. Queen Nefertiti's captivating gaze was legendary, but what if her stunning eye makeup wasn't just about beauty? What if it was ancient medicine, secretly fighting off disease? This surprising idea is exactly what scientists are discovering today. For thousands of years, Egyptians used black eye makeup made from lead-based substances. While we now know that lead can be poisonous, the ancient Egyptians believed that their makeup had a special, almost magical power. They thought the gods Horus and Ra would protect anyone who wore it, not just from bad looks, but from illnesses too. But is this really true, or was it just a legend? Scientists got curious and studied samples of ancient Egyptian makeup kept safely in the Louvre Museum in Paris. They found 4 different kinds of lead-based materials in the makeup. Then, in a cool new experiment, they discovered that these substances actually caused human skin cells to produce a lot more nitric oxide, up to 240% more. Why is that important? Because nitric oxide is like a super helper inside our bodies, boosting the immune system and helping fight off infections. So, could the Egyptians have been using their eye makeup as a way to stop eye infections? It makes sense, especially because the Nile area was full of swampy, wet places where bacteria thrive, leading to eye problems. Wearing lead-based makeup might have helped protect people's eyes from getting sick. And here's another twist. Some of these lead compounds weren't found naturally in the environment. That means that ancient Egyptian chemists had to create them on purpose, a sign that they really understood how to make powerful mixtures, not just for decoration, but for health too. The idea that cosmetics were also medicine might sound surprising, but it shows once again how smart and innovative the ancient Egyptians were. They didn't just want to look good, they wanted to stay healthy too, using what we now see as beauty products as secret weapons against disease. Thanks for watching! Have you heard of any other crazy Egyptian discoveries, stories, or theories lately? Let me hear about them in the comments, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you later, bye!